Hi, this is Andy Dojek. I'm here in Standardsville, Virginia. I teach 6th through 8th grade GIS. Christine, it's your turn.
I'm Christine Esposito. I am also in Charlottesville. I used to be a 6th grade social studies teacher, but now I am a K-4 gifted teacher and am teaching some of my 3rd and 4th graders GIS.
And let's see, if you guys would like to introduce yourself in the chat box. I see Justin, and I believe I see Lauren, Maureen, and Linda. Is that accurate? 3 people on one feed? Welcome from Newton Lee Elementary School. Where's Newton Lee Elementary School? Oh, nice. Northern Virginia. Welcome. Welcome, Justin. Glad you could join us as well. And Emily, if you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat box, please just tell us where you're connecting from this afternoon. Hi, welcome from Spotsylvania, Emily. All right, so your final step for this course is to design your own story map. And in the Canvas Learning site, you'll see it's a module step 4.3. You'll see the assignment page and all the resources that are available to you. And in the assignment, the example provided is one that one of my world history students created after the SOL window on Easy Company's journeys during World War I. It's the group that Band of Brothers, the movie, was based on, and he created a really nice story map to show their exploits and accomplishments during World War I. So right now I'm going to hand it over to Christine, and I'm going to download the instructions, and Christine will walk you through what our expectations are for that.
Okay, so when you think about a story map, really think about it sort of like as a book. And so the very first part of your story map, there are going to be 7 required sections. The first part should be a title section so people know what they're looking at least 5 content slides, so different map extents, different pictures, and then the last one, which is super important, is the citations and the bibliography section. We encourage you to use MLA style, but it is really important that you use images that are copyright compliant, otherwise we can't post them on Esri. There's a really easy way to find copyright compliant pictures. If you go to images.google.com, up at search tools, you can actually choose, one of the choices is OK for reuse, and that means that they are in the public domain. Each section's, oh, I did that. And so for those, there are 3 required elements. We've given you a bunch of choices, but you need to put at least 3 into your project. You need to have a base map that's appropriate to the story subject. I know my students love the images base map, but that is not always the best image for what they're doing. Different map extent, so how close you zoom into a map or whether you pull back. You're going to want more than 1 layer, and then you're going to want to think about how to symbolize those layers with points, lines, and polygons. Whether or not you want to use spatial analysis tools to tell the story, like do you want students to measure how far something away is? Do you want to have them create a buffer? And then map notes, which because I'm dealing with 3rd and 4th graders, map notes are their favorite thing to add to a map, and it gives them really good information really easily. So you need just at least 3 of those. So the multimedia really is the meat to me of the story map. And so each slide, you're going to want to have multimedia on every page. So whether that is pictures or whether you go to YouTube clips or link students to somewhere outside, you're going to want that. And then they, again, must go back using copyright laws. So make sure that you are sort of making a good faith effort to make sure something is in the public domain. And then the last part, which is the story part to the story map, is you want to make sure that there is narrative text for students to read. It can be explaining the map, it can be questions, it can be a whole host of things, but really make sure that you use that sidebar in addition to the multimedia. You want to make sure that students get the idea behind a story map in that it's telling a story. So those are everything that goes into the project. It may seem like a lot, but I promise you it is really not. All right, Chris, back to you.
Okay. Thank you, Christine. At this moment, if you have any questions about what we're asking you to do, if you look in the control panel, you'll see a little hand there, and you are more than welcome to raise your hand, and we can either share your mic or you can put the question in the chat box. At the same time, throughout this webinar, if you want to just post questions in the chat box, the three of us will be monitoring it and trying to answer any of the questions you may have. So right now, are there any questions about the expectations we've set forth for this final assignment? Justin, that's a really good question. You know, I don't know if all YouTube videos are public domain. I do know that when you're putting in a URL to YouTube, that you're putting in a link. You're not actually taking that and posting it up there. Christine or Anya, do you have any thoughts on YouTube?
I don't. I would generally say if somebody is posting something to YouTube, the point is to share it. The only caveat I would give you is if something is clearly from like a documentary or a movie that you think probably was uploaded and shouldn't have been, I wouldn't use that. But if something was done by an individual and uploaded, I would think it would be fine. And if Chris is saying the link is okay, then I would just make sure that you don't use the embed option and just do the link.
I would err on the side of just good faith copyright rules. That if you know it's blatantly a copyright violation, it's the full length of Braveheart or another movie or video. Just stay away from that. Really, what we're looking for is a good faith effort, and that's what we can stand behind with Esri. Esri, the company that gives this software away. When you and your school or we sign on for an organizational account, we express that it is our intent to not violate copyright. And so I think you just have to show that effort. I mean, if you have an image in there that says Getty Images across it, or I forget what the other image group out there is that's owned by Microsoft, but if it clearly says copyright don't use and you've put it up there, that's not good faith. So the next piece we want to share with you, and again, just continue to put your questions in the chat box, is we've created a teacher's guide to help you get started, because you might be asking, great, that sounds like it's going to be a nice activity. How do I get started? How do I recall all the things that we've learned over the last 3 weeks? So there is a story map teacher's guide available in Canvas. In this guide, I'll just quickly highlight a few pieces to it. You'll notice that there's the steps for how do I get my project started. The key is for you to identify an essential question, and I would recommend that you choose a small, nice pilot topic for your first story map. Don't try to create the Taj Mahal with this first one. It can quickly consume your time and energy, and we don't want this to be a frustrating experience. We want this to be a nice and doable experience, and one that is manageable. Next, after you identify the question, gather those pictures or resources that you're going to want to link to your story map, embed as map notes, embed as a YouTube video, and so forth, And make sure that these images are either accessible online or that you have a way of uploading the images online. If you were doing this for the class, create login accounts for your students. For us, we're going to ask you that you use the iSTEM ArcGIS online organizational account. However, if you do have your own school organizational account, let your advisor know, and we can make some exceptions for that. The key is that using the iSTEM organizational account gives you technology bells and whistles that a public account would not. So make sure it's an organizational account. Under the story map procedures, and Andy is going to walk through this in a moment, you'll notice we have the steps for what you need to do. The key is that you make your map first, and then you share your map as a story map app. And so if you look at step 10 here, it tells you how to click and make your app. You'll click create your story map, and then it might prompt you to sign in, and if needed, sign in. And you'll notice that once you started, it gives you an option to take a tour. You'll add a home section. You'll set your maps, which Andy's going to show in a moment, but here are just some things to keep in mind under step 17. And step 18 and 19, there are screencasts available to you on the Canvas site to walk you through these, and it will show you how to publish your final story map. We've also provided to you, if you'd like to use this graphic organizer for your own map or for your classes, feel free to. I sometimes use these with my students if I've assigned a story map so that they already type out what they need and then they just cut and paste it into the story map itself. So that's the teacher guide that's available to you. And then just here is the editable story map graphic organizer here in your assignment sheet. So if you click on graphic organizer, it brings it up in the document format, and you can type away with all the notes and pieces that you would like to have available to you. So if you want to start to edit it, you can go ahead and type in all the information you would want for your story map. At this point, I am going to hand it over to Andy to just model a couple of the steps that you'll need to use in ArcGIS Online to create a story map. Andy, are you ready for me to share your screen?
Yes.
All right. So let's see. Give me just a second. I'm going to give you moderator privileges here. And then I am going to stop sharing. So Andy, you should now have the ability to start sharing.
Yes, I'm getting in there now.
Okay.
All right, I think I'm sharing now, right, Chris? Says I am. All right. So essentially, when you are making a story map, the key is to design your map as best as possible. Basically, come up with the most complete map you can actually have before making your story map. You can go back and edit your map once you've begun the story map process. It's just a lot easier to start with a nice, precise, and finished map. So I made a map this would be for, in my county, 8th grade world geography. It talks about geographic site, just the different types of sites. And so if here's a pin for hilltops and confluence sites and river narrows, etc. And so first thing you want to do is save your story map. Save your map, and then click on the share button. And once we get to the share button, you can see that you have the option to create a web application. That's what we want to create. And you have all kinds of options on the side. Those are pretty fun to play around with at some point, but for purposes of today, we just want to build a story map. And the story map type we want to build is a story map journal. Someone asked in my forum about crowdsourcing, and this is a way to make a crowdsourced story map. As you can see, those still in beta, so it's not really the final release yet. But story map journal is what we would like you folks to make. So click on that. Give it a title. It usually follows right along with your the title you gave to your map. And it'll take a second to generate your web app. And that's essentially what you're making, is you're making a web application. It's almost like a web page. Select side panel, it just works easier. And so this is essentially going to be right here, your side panel. This will be your main stage. You can configure those. If you go up into settings and layout options, you can go, do I want my side panel to be 40%, or do I want it to be 30%? 40% is a pretty nice compromise. When you go 50-50, it really just doesn't look all that well. So 40-60, basically the default is the way to leave it. And so we're going to start now. I think Christine mentioned, treat this like a book, and a book has a cover. And so I always tell all my students to make sure that this is a cover, a nice cover page. And you can use a map, you can use an image, you can use a video, you can use a web page. I like to start with an image. So you just select the image. And you have the option to upload images from your own desktop or PC. This is new. So they don't actually have to be web hosted for this, whereas in the actual map making process, they do have to be web hosted. For the story map, they can be pictures from your desktop. We're going to use a link though, so I'm going to click on a link, and I went out and found, there's really no good picture of geographic site. I'm not really sure how you get a picture of that, but I went out to Google and just searched for a world globe, just a nice generic geography picture, and this is what Christine was mentioning before. If you click on tools, it gives you usage rights, and let's go with labeled for reuse. And the one I wanted to use just disappeared because of copyright issues, but we'll use this one. And essentially what you're going to do is just copy the image when it comes up. If it comes up, and it didn't, so let's pick a different one. Apparently that's from the same page. So we're going to do this here. I'm just going to use this one for today. Right click on it and just select copy image link or copy image address. Come back to your story map, paste that into there. And we'll hit next. And I went ahead and prepared just some material on there. And so here's just a quick definition of site. I'll copy that. And so this is your side panel. This is where you're going to put your content, where you're going to put your information. And so I'll just paste that in. If I wanted to, I could put another picture over here with this application here. With this button, I could put in a video if I wanted to. Just to show you quickly how to put a video in, you would just click on the camera, and instead of selecting image, you want to select video. And let's select a video from YouTube. This is an untitled screencast from our iSTEM YouTube channel, so I'm just going to copy the video URL. It has nothing to do with site, geographic site, but it will work for our purposes here today. And so I'm going to paste that in, and hit check, and then we'll select that video and apply. And then hit add, and so that's basically our title slide. So I could see we have some 5th grade teachers, if you're doing something on, American Revolution, or if you're doing something with Virginia Studies, Cumberland Gap, that type of thing, you could, that could just be a default picture, and then you could have your information over here. So that's kind of your title page. To add a section is very simple. Just click Add Section. This is going to be, I like to have a table of contents. I like to tell students to make a table of contents. So let's just say I have a table of contents. And this is where I'm going to start to use my map. Notice that map is pre-select. That's going to be our default. And select map, and it gives me the option to use the map that I've already published the story map from, and that's great. And so you have three, on your control panel, you basically have three actions here. You have location, content, and pop-up. And I want to locate my map. I want to make sure my map looks good. I don't want my map to be zoomed in here if I want to see everything that I've put on there. So I'm going to zoom back out. And I kind of want to set it so I can see all of my pins, and then I hit Save Map Location. And content, now these are the layers that we put on our map. And so if I look at I want all of my layers to show up because, this is the first thing everybody's going to see. I have layers for each of the different site types, and so I want those to come up because this is just a table of contents. So I click that. I don't have anything with the pop-ups, but if I did, I would just click on Custom. I would go and open the pop-up, and that pop-up would stay open. It gives you options here to put a legend, an overview map, etc. And then so some text and graphics. I just have a quick table of contents that I made. And I'd paste that in. And so there are my site types. And I'll show you something that I have a lot of my students do, and Chris is going to touch on this in a little bit, but it deals with what's called Mainstays Actions, but it works pretty well to put it right here. I'll just go back in and edit this, and notice this box right here, this Story Actions box. If I highlight Island, it gives me options here. And one of the options that I want to show is, if I click here, I can now modify my map a little bit, and I can have it so that the only layer that comes up when I click on Islands are my three island sites. And so when I apply that and I save that, so this is how it comes up. You see everything, and then I click on Island, and all of those just disappear. All right. I'll show you one more slide. So let's add a section. We're going to title this Island Sites. Continuing to use the map. I kind of want to use this location, so I'm going to hit Save Map Location. And I still only want my island layer to be shown. I don't want those confluent sites on there, so I want to make sure that those are deselected. So Save Map Content. This looks good. I'm going to go to the next slide. And once again, I have just a quick definition of island sites. I'll copy those. And I'll paste those in. And now I'm going to highlight Paris. And I'm going to go on Story Actions. And I can do a couple of things here. I can continue to work with the map where it zooms into Paris, or actually for this one, I'm going to have it so when I click on Paris, an image of Paris comes up. And instead of using a link, just to show you how simple it is to use and upload, it's just like finding an image. Brief apologies for whatever my computer brings up. There's my picture of Paris. And I actually want it to fill. It may distort the image a little bit, but that's okay. You can kind of play around with how you want to format the image to come in. So I hit Apply, I hit Add, and now when I click on Paris, you can see there's the Ile de la Cité right there in my Mainstays. Click back here, and there's my map of island sites. This is not Google Docs. I have this issue with students all the time. They don't hit the Save button enough. I would hit the Save after every modification I make to this story map. If you happen to close the tab, all your work is gone if you hadn't saved it. If you hit the back button, it does give you, sometimes it'll give you a warning, other times it might not. So definitely save your work quite often. This works just like a PowerPoint. You can organize your slides, etc. Once you get in, it's pretty user-friendly. The key, though, is make sure your map looks good from the start, and then actually building the story map is just really building a PowerPoint with a map on the side and plenty of multimedia. So, Chris, if you want to take back over control, and I'll just keep chiming in whenever I see fit.
Okay, give me just a moment to share my desktop. I want to show you just a few more interactive pieces to the story map, then we'll open it up for questions. Let's see. Can you all see this?
Yeah, you're coming back in now. Great.
You can see it?
Yep.
Okay, great. This past week we asked you to make a Civil War map, and so here's a simple story map made with the Civil War, looking at the first phases of the Civil War, and we can share the resources with you, and we do walk through how this story map was made with some of the tutorials in the course. So imagine that you want to create a story map in which your students are going through and going to be answering questions about working with an interactive Civil War map. And so you can see with this map, I embedded a Library of Congress image of the battle. It's a battle in South Carolina. And then I briefly explain what this story map's going to show. And then in this stage, I show that it's the war between the states. And I've listed some questions here on the side that I want students to answer while interacting with this map. I included the legend here so that the students could drop down the legend if they want to answer the questions. I then changed the setup of the map to show the two capitals and how close they were to each other. And then I show the major events. At this point, I want to show you how to take it a step further than what Andy was showing, how you can make your text interact. And so once you've made a map, note that you've got this nice ink pen here so you can edit your map. And so if you notice in my text, I've got, while there were over 300 battles fought in the Civil War, click here to see a map of the battles. And so that means I want the text to interact with the map. So I'm going to choose and highlight my text. And notice when I highlight the text, what happens to this bar up here for story map action. So when I highlight the text, I can then choose to say I want the main stage of the content to change when a user clicks on here. And so I can change a number of things. For this, I just want to change my content. So I'm going to choose custom configuration. And I can turn off my map notes and say turn on all the battles and say save the content. Click apply and choose save. And so notice now, if somebody clicks on here on the text, that piece of the map changes. If I click back on main event, it takes you back to that piece. And then I have in here on the side, click on the names of these events below to see a primary source that influenced the Civil War. So in the activity, we asked you to create 3 map notes. And so we could set up the text so when they click on the South, when they highlight the South, when they click on South secedes, the map note will open up. And so to do that, give me just a second. When you highlight the text again, I'm going to choose main stage content. And for this one, I'm going to custom configure my pop-up. And so I'm going to say that when they click on the South secedes, I want this map note to pop up. I'm going to choose Save the Map Configuration, click Apply. And I'm going to get rid of that, add an S to that. And then I'm going to say, all right, when they click on Fort Sumter, I want them to see the Fort Sumter map note. So I'm going to custom configure my map pop-up here to show the Fort Sumter map note. I'm going to choose Save, Apply, and Save again. And so now notice when somebody clicks on the South secedes, that map note pops up. They click into the image. It shows them a primary source that students can analyze. If they click on Fort Sumter, this is a map note that shows an image of the seat of war, and then when it clicks on this, it takes them out to a Library of Congress newspaper that I could have my students read. And so that just shows you how these maps become alive when you start to make them interactive by changing your content and making the text interactive. If you notice, this is just really a new way of presenting all the interactive data that we put together while creating the Civil War map. And so this is just a demo of the types of things that you can do. I know Andy and I are clicking on these things very quickly, and you might be wondering, how am I going to be able to do all this clicking? And the truth is, once you get into this and start making one section of your story map, and with probably a few mistakes along the way, you'll get the hang of it, and you'll be zipping along and making your own interactive sections.
Chris, I'm just going to jump in as well. If you look in the upper right corner, Chris kept hitting save, and all that was doing was saving what was happening on the side panel. It was not saving his story map. So make sure you hit that up in the upper right. I've had so many students lose their work, to which I just have to respond, you know, more practice for you because you have to do it over again. So make sure you're saving quite frequently.
Thank you for catching that, Andy. So I guess really the real importance is save early and save often. So at this point, I'm going to share my final tips and tricks, and I'll let Andy and Christine share theirs. My biggest tip for you is what I started with. Aim small and start small with your first story map. We don't want this to become the 20-hour Goliath project. We've figured out that it might take you 10 hours to do it, up to 10 hours. Don't try to redesign your entire World War II unit. Maybe pick a certain phase of World War II for your first story map. And also to see what layers might be lurking out there in ArcGIS Online that might be able to enhance your map. That's my tip to all of you. Aim small. Andy or Christine?
Chris kind of stole them all. I would definitely echo the start small. I know my biggest time suck is I know, oh, this would be really cool to add, and this would be really cool to add. Start small and manageable. You can always add on to it later, but it's a crazy time of year. Don't stress yourself out.
Yeah, and think about how you want to present this to your students. Are you using the story map as a presentation tool, or are you going to put your students... so my map that I made was more of a presentation tool, whereas Chris's map looks to be a bit more of a web quest. So either one of those are fine from where we're sitting. But you know, think about how you want to present this to your students.
And with that, we'll open it up for any last-minute questions you may have. Feel free to raise your hand if you have a question.
I'll chime in again. When I taught world geography, I would make one of these at the end of each unit. They were great, you know, for flipped classroom units. If I knew I was going to be out for a day or two, and you know, it was just, these were just great to put the kids on these. Now I had the luxury of each kid having their own Chromebook. I understand how that's not an option for some people. We see the question, can you speak to searching for and using layers? It looks like Chris is going to go ahead and load that up perhaps right now.
Yeah, Sherry, you raised a great question for searching for layers. So if you go back to the steps on the Civil War, we walk you through how you can add or search for layers. The key is the search word you might use might not be there. My biggest suggestion for searching for layers is uncheck the within map area and always search within ArcGIS Online. If you are working, and I'm not signed in, let me sign in here to make sure that it shows you all that you will have available. There's so much powerful data out there that you can interact with. So if you search for layers, and it's going to immediately come in to search in my organization, and if that's the case and you're looking for data that is on World War I, or you want to look at population data, it's going to limit you to the organization. So I recommend searching through ArcGIS Online. And so let's say that we wanted to look for census data. So if you put in U.S. Census, And if I search for that, notice all the different U.S. Census data that comes up. You'll notice there's a lot of data out there. So that's another tip for you. Check this data out. You've got high school kids putting data up here. You've got nonprofits putting data up here. I trust data that comes from ESRI and government agencies. So if I wanted to add the layer for U.S. population density, I choose Add, and the data comes right in, and notice it starts to give you some data. If I zoom in, I wonder if it changes. It does. So as we zoom in on this layer, it's interactive. It becomes part of your map. The key is to save your map. So when you add the data, it comes in under Content. If I don't like the data, I can go under More Options here, and I can remove it. The other place I recommend that you check out for data are the Living Atlas layers. This is a crowdsourced site that ESRI has allowed. So if you wanted to put in, I believe, wind, you can bring in active data here. So notice that under the Living Atlas, what's nice is you have live data feeds. So if you wanted to show current wind conditions in the world, click Add Layer to the map. And notice that we've got live data conditions, and it's telling you right now in Newark, the wind directions are right here, and this is live. So if you're doing something with weather with your students, this is a pretty nice map showing the weather conditions for wind around the world right now. So if you want to turn off the buoys, you can turn off the stations. So I recommend the Living Atlas and the ArcGIS Online area for searching.
Hey, Chris, while you're there, can you just go back into the Living Atlas and show some of the historical layers that are there? Some folks might want to use those.
If I type in historical, or how is, is there categories?
Actually, just go under all, it's under categories, yeah. Historical maps.
Cool.
Okay.
Oh, wait, let me.
Yeah, that's on the way.
So if we wanted to add the United States in 1862, so I added it a few times. I'm going to get rid of some of them. Yeah, thanks for bringing up the history ones, Andy. I'll say Andrew, because that's in your email.
Just while that's loading, I think there is a layer for Gulfstream. It would just be the same search that Chris used for wind, or if you just look up ocean currents, I think that comes up as well. There's certainly a layer. It might be a static layer. It might not be a live layer that shows prevailing ocean currents.
The last tip I would like to share is that within the course we have embedded a number of tutorials. And there's also a Story Map Cafe chat room or discussion board that we'd like for you to take advantage of. Because if you have a question during this process, we're sure other teachers and participants are going to have the same questions. And so please put your questions out there. If you're stuck looking for data, please post in the cafe, but then also send an email to your advisor. Because we're here to help you. We don't want you to get stuck. We've got experience with this software that we could go in and say, let me give the search tool a look, and we could say, hey, you know what, I did a search too, and there's not much out there. You probably want to go in another direction. Because if you start looking, we don't want you to get what we call data creep, where the look for data creeps up on you, and you lose so much time that you end up with a half-hearted project, not because your heart wasn't in it, just the data wasn't there.
To that question, can you create two maps in your account and access them at different times in the story map? Yes. Right when I was showing you how to put a map on, and I hit the down arrow, you can actually, the default map that you start from is what is there, but you can also go look into your My Content folder right from that screen. So that's certainly something I have students do. They right there, as Chris is showing you right now. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. It often goes underutilized when we give this assignment that people feel that they must use the one map they've created. You can create multiple maps. So, for instance, if I would like to, when I chose to select a map, it came into my content, and I have a whole lot of different content. So if I wanted to add my Walmart map here, I could, and then I could show my custom configuration. And so give me just a moment. This is kind of a crazy map. This is one where we look for Walmart locations. And these are all the Walmart locations, and I can add this very easily to my map. I just have to call this Walmart Nation for a title. Click Next. Wally World. Click Add, and notice I've now got a section in here for a totally different map that does not belong at all. But if I wanted to add it, I could. Any other questions? We know that it's 4:45, and Andy, I know if you need to go, feel free to check out. I know you got to pick up. I think you have to pick up a child. But are there any last-minute questions folks have?
If you do have questions, please post them on the discussion board. One of the three of us will get to them. Certainly post your story map ideas there as well.
Well, everyone, thank you for joining us. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared in the next 48 hours to the Canvas course. Good luck, and do not hesitate to reach out to us as you create your first story map. Thank you.